Okay, looking at our next example, we have 10x squared minus 43x minus 9, and we are trying to find the GCF of this trinomial first before we get started into factoring. So I want to GCF all my coefficients, so I'm going to math over 9, and remember I can only type in 2 at a time, 10, comma, and because the 43 is negative, remember when I type in my calculator, I can only use a positive. So their common GCF is 1. And so now I need to see what is the common GCF of these two, 1, with the third coefficient of 9. So remember 1, comma, and yes, I know the 9 is negative, but I cannot put the negative in my calculator or the calculator will not find the GCF of that. And so when I hit enter, I see that the GCF is 1. Okay. So if you get a GCF of 1, that just means that they don't really have a common factor other than 1. Well, if you were to include 1 in your final answer, you certainly could, but you just need to remember that that 1, you're not going to see it because 1 times anything or any value is going to be that value. It's not going to change anything. So I am not going to divide out a 1 because if we did divide out a 1 for the GCF, so let's do this. What is 10 divided by 1? It's still 10, so I'm still going to have 10x squared. What is negative 43 divided by 1? It is still a negative 43, so my second term is still negative 43x. It hasn't changed. What is negative 9 divided by 1? Again, it is still going to remain a negative 9. It is not going to change. So if you have a GCF of 1, you can use your original coefficients just like they are. So I can go ahead and say that my A coefficient is going to be a 10. And I can go ahead and fill this in. This is going to be 10x squared since that is my first term. I can go ahead and say that my constant is going to be a negative 9. So that's my C coefficient, and that negative 9 can go here. And my B coefficient is going to be a negative 43 because that is my middle term, my x to the power of 1 term. And now I can't fill these boxes in yet because I don't know exactly how that negative 43 is going to be broken up. There's lots of ways that we can break up a negative 43 to combine back to negative 43. So we have lots of options. So I want to go ahead and go to my X puzzle to make sure I get the correct terms to go in these boxes. So first thing, multiply your A times your C coefficient. And I know we've been used to just writing this number here, but you've got to make sure you're in that habit of multiplying A and C because now if you look, my product is not negative 9, it's actually negative 90 that I'm going to be looking for. And then my B coefficient is here, negative 43. So I want to find a factor pair or a list of factors for 90. So I'm definitely going to my calculator because I think there are quite a few that I may overlook. So I'm going to do 90 divided by x. Again, make sure the sign is correct in your X puzzle. If you want to find your factor list, you can make that number a positive. It is not going to hurt anything. So I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to start writing down my factor pairs. 1 and 90 for sure. 2 and 45, I definitely think I would have left that one off if I was just listing these off the top of my head. 3 and 30. Okay, 4 we're going to skip over because it has a decimal. 5 and 18. 6 and 15. We're going to skip over 7 and 8. And then I've got 9 and 10. And then I see 10 and 9. Again, they swapped. So I'm just going to skip over that. And now I'm going to start thinking, okay, I've got to use an option that's going to get me either through addition or subtraction to 43. So they've got to be pretty close together. 1 and 90 are too far, so are 6 and 10, they're only 1 off. They're about 9 off. That's not going to get me 43. I think 2 and 45 looks like a good option. And now one of them obviously has to be negative because the product is negative. So I've got to make sure I pick the correct option. Well, if I'm not sure, I can always check my mental math in the calculator. So if I made the 2 negative and I added 45 to it, that's going to be a positive. I bet it's the 45 that has to be negative. And yes, I was correct. So see, guys, checking your math in your calculator is not a bad thing. I know already these are going to multiply to 90. I was really just checking my mental math for this sum. So one box is going to have a positive 2x, and the other box is going to have a negative 45x in it. Okay, so before we could use our multiplication skills and we knew x times x, but we don't have just an x squared here. We have a 10. Well, there's several ways I could break apart a 10 to get a product. So I could do 10 times 1. So this could be 10x and 1x. or I could do 5x and 2x. So I want to make sure I'm picking the right option, because whatever I put here and here, I also have to use to multiply to create this box. Whatever I put here, I have to use multiplication to get there. So I want to make sure I'm picking the right factor for 10. So I'm going to actually use my calculator. We're going to start off in this row right here, and I'm going to find the GCF of 10 and 45. And that's going to help me split up this 10 into products. So 10 and 45. Again, I don't care if they're negative in my calculator, they have to be positive. And the common factor of 10 and 45 is 5. Okay, so which means a 2 has to go here, because 2 times 5 is going to make 10. So now I just have to break apart my x. Well, through multiplication, I know this has to be an x and this has to be an x. And 5x times 2x is going to give me 10x squared. So now I can just use my multiplication skills along with my GCF skills in my calculator to help me fill in these factors for the rows and columns. So 2x times what is going to give me 2x? That would be a positive 1. And now what times 5x is going to give me negative 45x? That would be a negative 9. And I'm just going to check my math again. Negative 9 times 1 does give me a product of negative 9. So now I know my factors that are going to go here. So 5x plus 1 and 2x minus 9. So, and when I'm looking for this on a multiple choice quiz or test, I would only be looking for these two factor pairs. I'm not going to see the GCF of 1 listed, so in this case I only have 2 factors that I have to look for my final answer to get me back to my trinomial of 10x squared minus 43x minus 9.